Welcome to the Change Champions podcast. And this episode's a little bit different because we've got both our guest Ann Shields and also co-host Ped Perisman. And it's I guess, New England meets Old England. I'm not really sure if that's a thing, but we were having a little bit of conversation before hitting record here for this episode. But before we go any further, Ann, do you mind just introducing yourself to the listeners, people who might not know you or would like to know you? Maybe a little backstory, a little highlight reel of what brought us here. Who are you? Welcome.
Oh, am I? Oh, it's philosophical.
So let's go deep. Let's just hit the ground running.
I'm Ann Shields. I have Lighthouse Life Design for a coaching company. It is primarily career coaching, but actually, I hate doing job search coaching. The thing that I really like to do is my sweet spot is people who are lost and confused. Often they come out of a liberal arts education. They have lots and lots of interests, don't really want to let go of any of them, tend towards the idealistic view of life. And therefore, it makes it really hard to make a decision about where they want to put their talents in a way that is going to make meaning for them. So all ages and stages, lost and confused. Prior to having this company, I worked in higher education, both in student development, student affairs, running career centers, and then working in alumni relations, setting up programs for alumni to help guide students who are trying to figure out what they want to do. So bridging the two populations.
Yeah, I think that last point is something that really caught my attention when we first connected, was because I had worked in higher education briefly. Ped as well has an education background, and I just thought, well, this conversation just has to happen. And all ages and stages of lost and confused, that sounds like the world of coaching. So and the caveat of the putting job searching to the side also makes sense. But before diving deeper into that, I know part of what we wanted to explore in this conversation, which honestly, I think that you and both Ped have a bit more experience than I do on this topic, which is really that coaching journey, I'll say, from an education perspective, specifically in terms of getting credentialed or accredited or certifications or fill in the blank. And so I know that you have some of those, that alphabet soup after the end of your name, but then I know you also help people add those letters to the end of their name. So can you also, just for context before we dive into that topic, can you also just share a little bit about your experience with that as well?
Sure. When I left higher ed, I followed through on my initial foray into coaching education and was encouraged and guided by an instructor who really thought that I should do this kind of work. Went through the certification. She also introduced me to an owner of a coaching school, one of the older schools, and I've been teaching with them for about 4 years. I teach the foundations class. I teach a skills practicum, job search coaching, and career coaching on career theories and how they affect how we might approach coaching. And through all of that, I also have gone through the ICF process for ACC, PCC, and I also went through their training to become an evaluator of the recordings that students send in when they're looking to get approved for accreditation. So I work with I don't know what coaching is up through I want to make it to the next credential.
That you cover a lot of ground there.
Yeah.
I imagine that from Ped's experience, maybe you can add a bit here, Ped. Would you say that you have, if I called those stages of all the ground that you cover, and would you say, Ped, that you've like checked all those boxes, like you've been through, walked all those or
Not all of
not
those
necessarily the
boxes.
point?
I think I would put myself in the classic shiny object syndrome coach of I want to do this, learn this methodology, and then this methodology and this methodology. So I've just gone and consumed and also use a lot of those coaching principles, coaching practices from life coaching, leadership coaching, relationship systems coaching, and ultimately made up my own unique set of ways of supporting clients navigate through change and all those things based on those things. But I never, ever got round to getting the accreditations. And in a way, I didn't. I know, shock horror. I know, right? But quite, I was doing a lot of similar work before I did my coaching. So I was always a trainer, a facilitator. I worked with groups of people. I supported organizations through change. And so when I learned these skills, took these qualifications, I was able to implement it in my practice quite readily. And I was never called to go and get the accreditation because I was able to do the work that I wanted to do and nobody really asked for it. Now, I know that's not necessarily the case in all circumstances, and there are certain contexts in which those letters do make a difference. But for me, it never stopped me doing the work I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, Anne, what's your take on when or where or what the line is between when the letters do make a difference or don't? What's your take on that?
The weird thing about the profession, in the United States, to the best of my knowledge, there is no state that has any kind of regulation or licensure to be able to call oneself a coach. And so there are coaches out with zero understanding of human development formally. And there are people who do the ICF or other certifications. I think it's a little tricky. I mean, I think ICF is worldwide, it's recognized. And my experience has been for myself, and I haven't been in this for a terribly long time, but when I see job postings to work in a corporate setting, they like to see a certification. My guess is, and it's a guess, that it's an imprimatur in terms of somebody else has given the okay for this person's skills. So we don't need to do a separate vetting because they don't know how and they don't want to develop that process. So if they have a certain kind of certification, then they're stamped as trained. But it's really interesting in my own field, when I teach the career stuff, the ICF expectations for coach do not match the National Career Development Association's definition of career coach. So when I'm teaching students, the school's coaching students, I say, well, with career coaching, there's a fair amount of mentoring. I work with young adults a lot, so it's a fair amount of teaching. But that's not according to ICF coaching. So it gets a little blurry. I'm not.
Pause for a second. Can you just provide a little more for context for people that might not know like what those definitions?
Okay.
You're comparing, contrasting coaching, mentoring. Can you explain that a bit more?
Sure. Within the context that I understand ICF and the way that our school teaches it, mentoring generally there's an experience and power differential. A mentor has more knowledge and acts more as a guide. And teaching or consulting, I have the answers and I'm helping you solve problems by providing knowledge and experience. But with coaches, we come into it as equals. I understand that you are fully capable of resolving questions, problems, and achieving your goals. And I'm walking along beside you, acting as a sounding board, challenging, reframing, thinking about things a little bit differently to help client get unstuck or see things in a different way, see themselves in a different way. But when I'm working with a 19-year-old or a 23-year-old who thinks I majored in history and therefore I have to work for a history company, and there are none. I have to explain that, well, it's not the same as majoring in engineering and going to work for an engineering company. It's different. And I have to do some explaining about skill sets in a way American higher education works with liberal arts. It's not professional training like engineering would be. So I have to be a knowledgeable one. I have to teach. I have to guide in a different way because their life experience isn't. They just haven't lived long enough. It's not their fault.
And in a way, when I hear that, it does make me think about the different hats that we can wear, and being intentional about, I am going to wear the expert hat or the knowledgeable person that's been there and done that hat, or I'm going to wear the coaching hat. And sometimes I might wear them in the same session, but it's about being really intentional about that. And I'm curious, when you're working with coaches who are getting accredited, and just thinking about actually the business side of things, and how these coaches then go and make a living out of it. Something which I know that I experienced in my own journey and see a lot with other coaches is there is the I guess the tension from going and experiencing coach training and by default getting coached and having your own breakthroughs in the process. It's like both a personal development as well as a professional development experience. And doing that with a group of peers where there's very much a bit of a sort of blank canvas. There's no necessary kind of person all the coaches are their own unique person from lots of different backgrounds, and there's no, I guess, niche or avatar or defined person that goes through that, because they come from a different, they want a very similar outcome. But in going through that experience and experiencing coaching in its purest form, and there's where I'm curious about the tension that you see.
Define purest form, Ped.
Yeah, what then happens with the people is that they think that they need to go and be able to coach anyone with a pulse, anyone that breathes, and that gets in the way of them being able to make a living from it. And I don't know how. Yeah, you've already started to talk about this design process that you use with people. I don't know if you want to just share a little bit more about that.
Well, it's an interesting question because last night in the foundations class that I was teaching, we were talking about niches and elevator pitches. And there's the ongoing debate of, do I just stay broad so I can have a broad appeal, or do I narrow down, which I understand could be better for marketing, but will I end up with too small of a segment to try to sell to? I don't know if that's what you mean. Can you?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to hear how when you've worked with coaches as they navigate their career path into the world of coaching and being a successful, not just a successful coach, but running a successful coaching business. How do you support, or what advice would you give coaches as they go from having experience as pure coaching experience where they don't have to be an expert, they can put that to one side and they can coach anyone because it's a very transferable skill. And yet when it comes to the world of business and being able to market yourself, there's a bit of a tension there, because if you try to speak to everyone, you speak to no one, and you don't actually end up having the impact that you're capable of having. And so what advice, or how do you help coaches navigate the tension between those two things?
Well, while they're students, my advice is to do as much practice coaching with as wide a group as possible, and find a cohort that you're most comfortable with. And it may be something you have deep experience in. You're coming out of a professional background. It may be something that the coach has recently gone through themselves rather than an academic background. the other end of it is niche quickly, see how it works, and then tweak. I have a friend who tries niches on in sprints. She does 3 months sprints with different versions of a niche just to try to find something that works. Um, it's challenging because, as with every coaching client, every coaching student is different, is bringing their own experiences, their talents, their fears into it. But when going back to the credentialing, my comment to them usually is, if you want the ICF credential, this is what you have to do. This is the coaching structure. I don't care if you stick with it, but if you want the credential, you need to you need to be able to pass the evaluation that tests these different markers. What they do beyond that doesn't. I don't coach by the ICF method a lot of times, especially with the young adults, because they don't know. And yes, I could draw it out of them with enough powerful questions, but their parents really don't want it to last that long. They really would like, they're the ones paying the bill. They'd like things to move a little quicker. Did a powerful question someone into a good, strong LinkedIn profile?
It's a mixed bag, because there's like the lovers of the art, I guess you could just say, if I were to call coaching like a craft, and this, you really just want to stick to the powerful questions. But I think something that I learned through my master's degree was person-centered therapy, and the idea was like, what's best for them. And if your client is ultimately looking for a result and they'd like to get there as fast as possible, if you can lead them to the answer, then maybe they'll retain it better. But also, if it's going to take them longer than you have time for, maybe you got to give them a little kick in the ass, so to speak. And just
Riley.
just a little nudge, just a little bit, a little.
Oh no, kick in the butt actually is that's the image. Where I try to come down on this, and when I coach working professionals or parents that are facing an empty nest, it's much more coaching, because they have full lives and lots of experiences to draw from. And I don't know what's best for them. I don't know what the right answer is. I know what a strong resume looks like. I know what good interview answers sound like. And so it's the same lost and confused, but it's built on different foundations. Some people need more of a foundation. In the end, though, it comes down to, for me, let me help you be as informed as you can be so that you can answer the questions that need to be answered. What you do with that is up to you. So you want to go to Broadway? Be my guest. And know that here are the challenges, here are the odds, here's how people make it, here's why people don't make it. It's totally out of your control. But if you want to go for it, leverage all of your advantages and go for it. But that's not likely something I would say to, a 53-year-old whose kids have just gone off to college who want to start a business. It would be the same in terms of what questions do you need answered to be able to make an informed decision. But I won't be as directive about, here's where you can find information about how many people make it and how many don't.
So I want to.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because with that said, like it depends, and I know that's the classic cop out answer, but it is it is the answer. But what it depends on is what I'm hearing, at least, Dan, is there's just to put it in plain words for the listeners, it's kind of like, if like you said, engineering, or if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, there's just a certain path that is laid out and there's boxes to check. And so if you want specific credentials to land a specific gig or job or career path, whatever, then like that the path is there. But at the same time, I mean, Ped, on this podcast, I've witnessed firsthand build a 6-figure business without the credentials. It doesn't mean he didn't have the skills or the qualifications, but it's in terms of like a specific group of letters to check that box. Like you can have success leaving that box unchecked, which then means
Yes.
so that's where, when I say it depends on the person and it depends on their goals. And so that brings me to when I say I want to shift gears, when we start focusing on coaches and not so much, so less your clients and more like, let's kind of look at like, I don't know, maybe a peer-to-peer level here. If we're talking about building a business and the business side of coaching, we talk about like visibility and marketing and niching. It's funny, the other day I was reviewing some of our testimonials, and there's this one client that we had who, her words specifically were, the more I niche down, the more clients I get. And so I want to talk about it from that angle, like the business angle, because we started touching on it, but keeping in mind the context, that it depends context of like who you are helping. What are your thoughts on, from a business perspective, of choosing a niche versus the, I think you said the having the widespread, I forget exactly what words earlier.
Well, I mean, I call myself a liberal arts life design coach. I want liberal arts, and how not that many people major in liberal arts anymore. It's seen as the thing that you don't want to major in because you'll never get a job. To the best of my knowledge, I'm the only one out there with that specifically part of what I do. And I am found. I'm found by referrals.
Yeah, if people don't have a higher ed background and they don't know what that, like, what does that mean? When you say liberal arts and you mix that
So
with...
liberal arts include the humanities, arts, literature, languages. It often includes social sciences like political science or sociology, anthropology, and it generally includes broad sciences, chemistry, biology, physics, but broad. They're not narrow. They tend to be more theoretical approaches, more discussion classes, and you don't necessarily come out of classes or the curriculum with projects that you can show an employer and say, here's an example of the skills I have. I mean, I could show somebody my senior thesis, but
discussion based. Yeah. So that on top of life design coaching, how do those mix together?
The way I describe it is we're all made of puzzle pieces. My skills, interests, and values, my experiences, they're all pieces of me, and I can rearrange them in different ways. So the skills I bring in from my academic background, whether it's pre-professional or it's liberal arts, they're all in the box. But when I go to engineering school, I dump out the box. There's probably a picture on the front of the box that shows an engineering picture that I put the puzzle pieces together to match. Because as you said, there's typically a path. And so there's typically a picture. But if I don't have that pre-professional training, I've got all these pieces and I've got to figure out how they configure into something that's going to be right for me. And so I generally start with values and as the edge pieces, and then look at skills maybe as the different colors for puzzle, and then interest, and start playing with them and putting them together in different ways. What feels right? But it comes down for most of my clients to the values. What's going to be meaningful to me? What's going to be important to me? That's always tricky, as it is for everybody, because you have to constantly weigh. I want a job that's going to make significant change in the world, and I've got $40,000 of high school of education debt. So there's constantly the balance. And so when I talk about helping them make an informed choice, just know it's best if you know what you're choosing, because every choice you make, you're going to be giving something else up. So that's how I approach the life design, and it's completely malleable.
I love that.
So,
It's as you're describing that, I was getting an image of this is what's inside the box, right? You've got all the different pieces that you help people clarify and put together in different ways. And I was curious about something you said earlier. You said, I'm a life design coach for people with liberal arts college backgrounds, and they find me, you said. And I'm curious about that. What is it that you're doing or not doing, or how do they find you?
When I took the leap of faith, I was thinking this is the clientele that I'm used to working with. High caliber college students, liberal arts, because those are the kinds of schools that I tended to work at. So I tried to think of who else would overlap with that population. And the first thing that came to mind are the coaches that help families get their kids into those colleges. So I started to reach out to those people. I'm not a threat because I don't do what they do, but they know the families in a way that I don't. I know the students, they know the parents and the families. And so I was able to learn from them. They understood what I could offer that they can't offer, and they make referrals. And then it becomes family to family referrals. Now I'm at a life stage where I love what you guys do. And if I was in a different stage of my life, I probably would hire you. Right now, I'm not looking to really grow. I have almost
And don't
for
tease
me,
us. You're just getting started. You're just getting...
I'm basically fully booked as much as I want to be. Yeah, could I always use a few more clients? Yeah, because they roll off. But as a coach who's realistic, I also have different income streams because the vast majority of coaches fail at their businesses.
What's the stat? Didn't you say you knew the number? It's something like, what is it, 95% of coaches?
Yeah, it's more than 75%, 80, 85%. However, I don't think it has anything to do with lack of skill. I think it has to do with marketing is slimy. No offense, guys.
Well,
I don't want to have to sell myself. I just want
say
people.
more.
I just want to help people.
So
what is it?
What is that? I just want to.
And by the way, you're talking to a British person here. That if you guys find that marketing slimy or sales icky, like dial that up for the British coaches out there. So yeah, would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I just want to help people. What can you explain that
want to
further?
help people.
Yeah.
It's I think the words that come to mind are humility and a genuine desire to help. It's not about making money often. It's not, the goal isn't to achieve a certain level of income, which is incredibly naive because the fact is, unless you're doing this as a side gig just for kicks, and you have, and you're independently wealthy, you need to bring in some money.
I'll never forget we had a guest on the show ages ago, in the lifespan of the show, and he said a lot of coaches wind up being really good at having relationships. They have all the skills, they can have great conversations, they're great at communicating, but there's no actual career there, there's no business there, because they don't actually. It's exactly what you said, and we see that all the time. Like I obviously we talk to coaches and consultants on a daily basis, and there's so many that I meet that it's very rare that I've met one that I felt like they're lacking skill in that department. It's much more often that it's applying it into the business world, and on a personal level. I remember learning, I was one of those guilty liberal arts people, and had a degree in psychology that felt like it was a degree in nothing because I didn't know what I was going to do with it. And when I started learning more about sales and marketing, I remember thinking like, I feel like I learned this stuff, but it was just a completely different context. It was almost like I was starting over because I never actually had to apply it into this domain. And that transference, that transferability of skill and knowledge, that was really what made a huge difference, is when I had to almost relearn the skills in that new context. And so it's not the skill of coaching that's an issue, it's the visibility, the marketing, the business development. And so when you say like, I just want to help, and you also called that naive in a way. And in my head, I hear that as like, well, if you want to help, you probably, it's almost like you can't pour from an empty cup. It's like if you don't have some sort of income, like if you can't sustain yourself, then I mean, unless you just want to go be a volunteer Buddhist monk and just, you know, live your live your life wearing rags and give everything you have away, which most people don't want to do. Some do, but most don't. Then I'm completely behind that statement. But I wonder what, like, from your perspective, the naivete, I guess, what, like, that's, where does that come from? Like, why is that? How come there's that disconnect from your perspective?
I don't want to have to sell myself. I don't want to go out there and brag about myself. Okay. But talking with people about what you do isn't bragging, it's fact. This is what I do. I help people avoid having a career in the same way that real estate agents help people avoid buying a house on curb appeal. And if people don't know that I help others be thoughtful and informed about what they do, no one's going to find me. I don't know how people find me on Google, not Google, on LinkedIn, but they do. I mean, part of it is how I describe myself. Everybody I talked to about web pages said you've got to keep it really short. No one wants to read. I don't want to work with people who don't want to read. So I have longer blocks of text, and one of the tabs in my menu is for those of you who actually like to read about something. Here's what you might want to know about me, because I don't want the others. So I position myself as me, but nobody's going to find me unless I'm doing those relationships, like you said. You can't stay in sales and be good at sales if you aren't a relationship person. I believe. I don't know. What do you think?
Agree. I want to hear Pet's thoughts in a second. But
Yeah, I was gonna. I can see Riley's
the gears are turning.
I was just going to ask whether, because I know that I certainly experience this myself, and when I speak to other people, I see it implicitly around probably a disconnect between what sales is and what sales isn't, because there is definitely a conception that sales is slimy, icky, pushy, etc., versus what you've been talking about a lot. You use the word relationship a lot, and that leads to sales for you and the impact that you want to have. And I was just curious to hear a little bit more about what you mean by relationship and how that connects to sales ultimately.
Maybe the word is marketing and the connotation around that. So we are being marketed online by algorithm. They don't care about me as a person. They just are gathering pieces of information and trying to reconfigure them to see what I would be most interested to buy. And then I will be inundated by things that the algorithm thinks I'd be interested in. So that to me is marketing, trying to get me to buy something or do something. For me, the relationship piece is, what do you need? I may not be the right person for you. These are the things that I'm skilled at. These are the things I really enjoy doing and get excited about. Here are the ways that I'll support you. But I turn people away. It's like, no, I don't do that. Job search coaching, no, thank you. I don't like it. There are plenty of other people who want to do it. If I'm in relationships and sales, I'm doing a lot of questions and listening, not trying to distort what I'm hearing into what I want to sell.
Right. And I think that I saw Riley just go, yes, with his hand gesture. And that really resonates with both of us because we don't see sales as a pushy or marketing as a pushy thing, but we often say sales is an act of service. And the first part of the service is by asking questions, listening, using all of those coaching skills that people are so good at. And in fact, it's a strength of coaches to be curious, to be in relationship. And that's part of the process of ultimately sales, including also if it's not a sale, but being of service by asking those questions. People feel heard, people feel understood. You can tell them whether you can help them or not. And if you can't help them, oftentimes we know which way to point them as well. And yeah, it just seems like it's a very misunderstood thing, this whole marketing and sales thing. It's all about relationships.
And what I often hear my students say, and what I have said is, I don't want to do the whole social media thing. I don't want to be making reels 4 times a day. I don't want to be posting on Instagram. I mean, again, life and stage, I'm just not that interested. That's not how I want to spend my time. Yes, I could learn it, but I would rather just go out and work in my garden. I mean, I'm making my choices. Could I have a bigger business if I did that? Yes. Could I just pull out my big girl panties, if you'll excuse me, and make myself do it? Yes. And I'm choosing no because of the value stuff. I know that unless people know that I'm around, I'm not going to get found. Right now, for me, the referrals have pretty much done it. But the referrals also come from actively connecting with people. So, Riley, I don't know if you'd asked to connect with me or I asked to connect with you, but I know one of the first things I said is, I'm not buying your product. I'm not looking to buy marketing, but you sound really interesting. Can we talk? And I like meeting people. I'm curious. I mean, I think that's one of the key gifts or strengths of a coach is being curious. And I'm curious about people. And if I make if we connect, you'll remember me and possibly send somebody my way. And if I know somebody who's looking for someone who help with their marketing, I can send them your way. And it's about a relationship. It's not transactional. It's about let me help you and you help me.
I just want to highlight how there's when you have a business, there just is an element of numbers that you just cannot get around. Like the business is its own entity and it just doesn't care. It's like a child. It needs to be fed, doesn't care who feeds it. It needs what it needs. And I think that's the like thing to grapple with, or the balance when you talk about like the algorithms versus like, human relationships. And to me, the middle ground, which is just a fact, it's just very realistic, which I love that about you, Anne. You're just so grounded. It's that New Englander in you. um, it's being intentional, and it's like strategic, I would say, with your time. And it's really just you have a limited amount of time, energy, resources, and so where do you deploy that? And so for those listening, just to really like pound it home, you were intentional about making sure that you could be seen, you could be visible. So that is what I would call that marketing. And then you use what we talk about as an effective sales approach, which was you listened. You did not go in with a cold pitch or I'm going to push this thing onto this person. You asked people like what their need, like essentially you just listen to the market. And that's what we just push people to do all the time, as in the ones that work with us. We're like, if you want X, then do this. It's fairly straightforward. And of course, there's, roadblocks and obstacles that you hit along the way. But that's number one, what I heard you do. And I'm conscious of time. So maybe to kind of wrap a bow on this, there's 2 final points that I want to make / ask. And so the first is kind of an analogy that comes to mind that also hopefully encapsulates what you said earlier and maybe gives the listeners a clear picture. But so I'm sure that we have all been solicited. Like in my neighborhood, it's the solar panel guy knocking on your door, and he's got this weird knock to get your attention, and it's very loud, and they keep coming back, and they just will not let you go. I'll just keep asking questions until they get an answer that they want. That compared to imagine if someone knocked on your door and was like, "Hey, I'm so sorry to bother you, but we are doing some research. Just asking, we're surveying, we're not even selling anything. Like there's nothing to buy here. There's nothing to put your name down on. We're just asking some questions." Now or another time, would you be interested in answering or open to a few questions? Most people, like you're probably going to get a much higher response rate taking that approach than the other. And that sounds like A, what you did, and B, it feels like we're all on the same page there in terms of like just differentiating. Does that picture make sense? I'm seeing both of you nod, but I want to make sure for listeners too.
Yeah, it does. And if someone came to the door and said, "I'm just doing research," I would still have my nose very attuned to the aroma of, but this is just a trap to get you to buy something. So when I work with people on networking, it's not about going out and seeing who has a job lead for you. It's to go out and learn from them. And if you give a hint of, "I'm going to come back for a job lead," you're going to get nowhere. You want to value that person. You want to acknowledge they have experience that you don't have and that you value it. And then come back later and say, "You were right. Now I've got more questions," and build it up.
Yeah.
I just do it in different ways. Part of it is the different income streams. I mean, I am in positions where I can, with the teaching, I can pick up mentoring clients. With the teaching, I can pick up career coaching referrals because I'm exposed to that many more people. So I'm marketing in a way by getting myself out there, but I'm an introvert. But I'm curious first. I know it doesn't seem like an introvert. It's the ADD with the 5 pinballs going on, Riley. That's what's going on here.
What a
I know, it's a blast. It's a blast sometimes. But coaches need to understand that they're not going to be found by just sitting around and wanting to be good and helpful. They need to believe in themselves. They need to earn credibility and respect. Then I think, Ped, you don't have those credentials, but you have the credibility and respect. And so I would rather have that than some letters. So focusing on, I need to get the letters. I don't know enough yet to coach. Yeah, you do. If you're curious and you care about people, you have enough to coach. And get some people to say, "Yes, she's a good coach." Okay, now I have something I can work with. Am I doing that too simplistically?
No, I think that really captures the process of how to get started as a coach, how to get momentum as a coach, and how to serve more people and earn a living doing it. It's not complicated. I often think, or I'm often reminded that we've got the skills right now to take the next step. And that's the whole point about coaching as well. Like, you either have the knowledge or you know where to go get that knowledge to take the next step. And sometimes we just need to what's the expression? I always get them wrong. Eat our own medicine. Take our own medicine. I need the dog food as well.
I would back it up even one more step, and that is knowing that you have to ask questions. What do I need to know in order to get clients? And that's where you guys step in. What do I need to know? Do I have to be on social media? No, you don't have to be. It can be advantageous, but you don't have to be. Do I have to have all the credentials? can be advantageous. It can also put you thousands of dollars in debt and waste a lot of time. It depends. But are you asking yourself, do you know what questions to even ask yourself to be able to make an informed choice? And I assume that's part of what you guys do is, what is it that you want out of your business? What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to achieve? And if you want this, then the odds say these are the ways to do it. And if you don't want to do this, then here are some alternatives that might take longer, or might be harder, or your choice. No guarantees, because it's all on me to actually do the work. But I know we're running out of time.
It's full circle back to the values conversation, and that's always a start. I mean, even people that reach out to us, asking about our work or working together, we always start with the same, like, we have to have that conversation first to make sure that this actually makes sense and there's a fit, and that our method or our strategy would actually work for you. Because if your values aren't, I mean, I remember having a call with one woman, and I felt like more like I was wearing your hat, Anne. I said, I think you might need to consider a different career. And I said it in a much nicer way, but I was, it's kind of blunt sometimes. It's just, this might not be for you. Just based on what you're saying. It's nothing like, I'm not coming in with that. It's just based on what they're sharing. And that's why just being honest, open, curious, like those are all, definitely things we look for. And the last question I was going to ask, I think you've already hit, which was summarizing in a very simplistic key takeaway. So well done to you, Anne. It's like you are an expert teacher or something like that. But I will ask for people who are listening and they do want to get to know you more, or find more about you, or read your long paragraphs wherever you put them. Where can they find those? Where can they find out more about you if they wanted to get in touch?
My website is Lighthouse Life Design. And one of the words, and Ped, you might like this, I call myself a cubist thinker. Only someone who has a broader, I can see it from all the different angles. I've had people say, that's the phrase that got me to call you. And I was told by every marketer to drop it.
I like that, a cubist thinker. So if you're
I'm
looking
a cubist thinker, I look at things from different perspectives.
Exactly. LighthouseLifeDesign.com, correct?
That's
Anne Shields, thanks so much for your time and being a guest on our show.
It's been fun. Thanks for giving me the time and for asking such great questions. I love to play with ideas, and you gave me an opportunity to do some playing. Thank you.